The ships crossed through Coruscant's atmosphere at high speed, bringing back the heroes of the Republic. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi had just completed one of the most dangerous missions of the Clone War, the rescue of Chancellor Palpatine from the clutches of General Grievous. The city planet stretched below them like an ocean of lights and metallic structures, but Anakin's mind was focused on just one person. As the ship landed on the landing platform, he could sense through the Force a familiar presence that made his heart race. It wasn't just Padme waiting for him, but there was something more. A second presence he would recognize anywhere in the galaxy. The young Jedi Knight descended the ramp with hurried steps. His blue eyes swept the platform until they found the elegant figure of his secret wife. Senator Bail Organa was there to greet them officially, his diplomatic posture and cordial smile masking the tension everyone felt after the Chancellor's kidnapping. Anakin exchanged some quick words with the senator, his voice tense with barely contained anxiety. Padme remained somewhat distant, her delicate hands holding the fold of her dress, her face showing a mixture of relief and nervousness. Anakin excused himself politely and walked toward her, each step feeling like an eternity. When he finally got close enough, she approached and hugged him briefly, conscious of the looks around them that couldn't know the true nature of their relationship. Padme whispered something in his ear, and Anakin made an almost imperceptible gesture with his head. They discreetly moved away to a more private area of the platform, away from the curious eyes of officials and guards. The tension on Padme's face was evident now that they were alone. Her hands trembled slightly as she held his. "Anakin, you need to know something," she began, her voice soft but charged with emotion. "I'm pregnant." The words struck Anakin like a lightning bolt. His face lit up with a pure and genuine joy that was rarely seen in times of war. He pulled her closer, forgetting for a moment all precautions and protocols, his forehead touching hers as he processed the most wonderful news he could receive. But before he could say anything, Padme pulled back slightly, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. "That's not all," she said, her eyes shining with a mixture of amusement and emotion. "We have more news." Anakin frowned, confused, trying to understand what else there could be beyond the news of the pregnancy. Padme looked to the side, making a subtle gesture with her head, and Anakin followed her gaze. There, emerging from the shadows of one of the platform's pillars, was a figure that made his heart stop for an instant. Ahsoka Tano, his former Padawan, was standing there, her bright blue eyes fixed on him, a hesitant but genuine smile on her face. There was something different in her posture, a maturity that wasn't there when she had left the Order. "Snips," Anakin murmured, the word leaving his mouth like a sigh of disbelief and joy. Ahsoka didn't wait any longer. She ran toward him and hugged him tightly, her arms around his neck. Anakin returned the embrace with equal intensity, feeling all the pent-up emotions of the last months overflow at once. "I missed you, Master," she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Me too, Snips," Anakin replied, his voice hoarse with emotion. "So much." When they finally separated, Ahsoka discreetly wiped her eyes, a smile still lighting up her face. She looked at Padme and then back at Anakin, the understanding clear in her eyes. "Padme told me everything," she said calmly. "About you two, about the marriage, about the baby." Anakin felt a wave of panic wash over him, his self-preservation instincts screaming about the danger of someone else knowing his secret. But when he looked into Ahsoka's eyes, he saw only understanding, loyalty, and genuine love. "You don't need to worry, Master," she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "Your secret is safe with me. It always has been, it always will be." Padme approached, standing beside Anakin, her hand finding his discreetly. "When Ahsoka returned to Coruscant and couldn't find you, she came looking for me," Padme explained. "We talked, and I felt I could trust her." Anakin looked between the two most important women in his life, feeling deep gratitude and also growing fear. Having someone else know his secret was risky, but at the same time, having Ahsoka back, having someone to share the weight of everything with, was more than he could have hoped for. In the days following Anakin's return, many things changed in the young Jedi Knight's life. Ahsoka had made an important decision, She wanted to return to the Jedi Order. Anakin accompanied her to the temple to speak with the council. His presence beside her was both support and a silent statement that he believed in her return. Master Yoda and Master Windu heard Ahsoka's request with that characteristic serenity of the most experienced Jedi. "Return, you wish, young Tano," Yoda said, his ancient eyes studying her carefully. "Learned much you have in your time away." Mace Windu was more direct, crossing his arms and observing her with that penetrating gaze. "The Order is not something one leaves and returns to at will, Padawan Tano." Ahsoka kept her head held high, her voice firm when she responded. "I understand, Master Windu. The Force has guided me back to where I belong." After a deliberation that seemed to last an eternity, the council accepted Ahsoka's return, designating her once again as Padawan to Anakin Skywalker. The news filled Anakin with a joy he hadn't felt in a long time, as if a lost part of himself had been restored. Ahsoka began to stay by Anakin's side constantly, accompanying him on missions, training sessions, and even council meetings when appropriate. But there was a different dynamic now. They weren't just master and Padawan, they were confidants. Ahsoka knew about Padme, about the baby that was on the way, about the secret fears that haunted Anakin in the darkest hours of the night. She became the bridge between the two worlds that Anakin tried to keep separate, the world of the Jedi and the world of his forbidden love. Anakin began to have nightmares, terrible visions of Padme dying in childbirth, screaming in pain while he watched helplessly. He would wake up in the middle of the night covered in cold sweat, his heart pounding uncontrollably in his chest. On one of those nights, after waking from another particularly vivid nightmare, he sought out Ahsoka. She was meditating in one of the temple gardens, the light of Coruscant's moons bathing her face in silver tones. "Master," she said without opening her eyes, sensing his presence before he even spoke. "I felt your anguish through the Force." Anakin approached and sat down beside her, his head low, his hands trembling slightly. "I had another vision, Snips. Padme is dying, and I can't save her." Ahsoka opened her eyes and turned to him, her expression serious but compassionate. "Visions are difficult to interpret, Master," she said calmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You taught me that the future is always in motion, always changing based on the choices we make in the present." Anakin looked at her, his blue eyes full of fear and despair. "But what if it's real, Snips? What if I really lose her? What do I do?" Ahsoka squeezed his shoulder harder, forcing him to look directly at her. "You're not alone in this, Anakin. You have me, and together we'll find a way to protect Padme. But you can't let fear control you. That's exactly what the dark side wants." Anakin knew she was right, but rational knowledge didn't calm the terror that grew in his heart with each passing day. Chancellor Palpatine also noticed the change in Anakin, and began to summon him more frequently for private conversations. On one such occasion, Ahsoka accompanied Anakin to the Chancellor's office. Palpatine greeted her with his characteristic kindness, but Ahsoka felt something strange, a sensation in the Force that made her want to move away from him. "Ah, young Ahsoka," Palpatine said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's good to see you back in the Order. Anakin must be very happy to have you as his Padawan again." "Thank you, Chancellor," Ahsoka responded politely, but keeping her distance. After they left the office, Ahsoka pulled Anakin aside. "Master, there's something wrong with the Chancellor," she said in a low voice. "I don't trust him." Anakin frowned, torn between his loyalty to Palpatine and his Padawan's intuition. The Jedi Council was also increasingly suspicious of the Chancellor and his growing powers. In a tense meeting, they asked Anakin to spy on Palpatine, a request that left him deeply uncomfortable. When Anakin left the meeting, he found Ahsoka waiting for him outside the council chamber. He was visibly disturbed, his internal conflict clear in every line of his face. "They asked you to spy on the Chancellor, didn't they?" Ahsoka said. It wasn't a question. Anakin nodded, running his hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "It's treason, Snips. He's my friend." Ahsoka touched his arm gently. "Or perhaps the Council knows something we don't know. You need to trust them, Master. And you need to trust the Force to guide you on the right path." The following weeks were tense, with the war reaching its climax. Anakin and Ahsoka fought side by side in several battles. Their synchronicity on the battlefield was perfect, as if they were two parts of a whole. But Anakin was increasingly tormented by his nightmares, by the pressure from the Council, by worry for Padme, and by Palpatine's whispers about powers that could prevent death. One night, after returning from a particularly difficult mission, Anakin finally opened up completely to Ahsoka about everything. He spoke about the combat with Dooku, about how he had lost control and defeated him in a way that was not the Jedi way. Ahsoka listened to everything in silence, without judgment, only offering her presence and understanding. In the end, she said only one thing: "Whatever happens, Master, I will be by your side. But promise you won't let the darkness consume you. Promise you'll fight against it." The truth came to light in a way no one could have predicted. Anakin had gone alone to meet with Palpatine, and what he discovered in that conversation changed everything. The Chancellor wasn't just a manipulative politician, he was a Sith Lord, Darth Sidious, the same one who had orchestrated the entire war. Palpatine revealed his identity to Anakin, speaking about the teachings of Darth Plagueis and the power to save people from death. "It's possible to learn this power," Palpatine whispered, his yellow eyes shining with barely disguised malice. "Together, we can discover the secret. I can teach you to save Padme." Anakin left that meeting in a state of shock, his mind spinning with the implications of what he had just discovered. He didn't go straight to the Council as he should have. Instead, he sought out the only person he completely trusted in that moment. Ahsoka was in her quarters at the temple, reviewing battle reports, when Anakin rushed in. His face was pale, his eyes wild with conflicting emotions. "Snips," he said, his voice hoarse. "I know who the Sith Lord is." Ahsoka stood up immediately, her lightsaber within reach by instinct. "Who, Master?" Anakin ran his hands over his face, as if trying to wake from a nightmare. "It's Palpatine. The Chancellor is Darth Sidious. He's been here the whole time, manipulating everything." Ahsoka felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She had always distrusted Palpatine, but this confirmed her worst fears. "We have to tell the Council immediately," she said, already moving toward the door. Anakin held her by the arm. "I know, but Snips, he said he can teach me to save Padme." Ahsoka turned to him sharply, her eyes wide with horror. "Master, you can't be considering this. He's a Sith. Everything he says is lies and manipulation." Anakin shook his head, trying to organize his thoughts. I know, but what if it's true? What if he really can teach me to save her?" Ahsoka held his face with both hands, forcing him to look directly at her. "Anakin Skywalker, do you hear what you're saying? You're considering joining the dark side for a possibility, for a promise from a Sith Lord? This isn't you. This isn't the man I know and admire." Anakin pulled away from her, his internal conflict visible in every movement. Together, they went to find Master Windu, finding him preparing to go meditate. When Anakin revealed the truth about Palpatine, Windu's face hardened in a way that promised violence. Master Windu didn't waste time. He gathered a group of Jedi Masters and prepared to arrest the Chancellor. "You will stay here," he ordered Anakin. "If what you say is true, you've done your part. Now let the Council deal with this." Anakin started to protest, but Windu cut him off with a severe look. "This is not negotiable, Skywalker. Your connection to the Chancellor can be used against you. Remain in the temple." Ahsoka placed a hand on Anakin's arm, silently supporting Windu's order. After the Masters departed, Anakin became restless, pacing back and forth in the Council chamber. Ahsoka remained with him, trying to keep him calm through her presence in the Force. Hours seemed to pass like minutes, each second increasing the tension in the air. Finally, Anakin couldn't take it anymore. "I have to go," he said suddenly, moving toward the door. "Snips, I have to be there." Ahsoka jumped in front of him, blocking his path. "Master, no. Master Windu ordered you to stay here. You have to trust them." Anakin tried to pass her, but she didn't move. "Please, Ahsoka, I need to be there. Palpatine may be the only hope for Padme." Ahsoka felt her heart tighten hearing his words, recognizing the same darkness she had feared beginning to manifest. "You're not thinking clearly," she said firmly. "I sense something very wrong in this. If you go, you may do something you'll regret for the rest of your life." Anakin took a step forward, his presence in the Force becoming darker, more desperate. "Get out of my way, Ahsoka." When Anakin tried to pass her again, Ahsoka made a decision that would change everything. She used the Force to push him back, not with violence, but with enough determination to make him stumble a few steps. Anakin looked at her with an expression of shock and betrayal, but there was something more there, something dark growing in his eyes. "Ahsoka, get out of my way. Now." His voice was different, colder, more controlled, and that terrified Ahsoka more than any threat could. "I can't do that, Master. I won't let you fall into darkness without fighting for you." Anakin began to lose control, the desperation and fear for Padme consuming any rationality that remained. The dark side began to flow through him like a dark tide, and for the first time in her life, Ahsoka saw a glimpse of what Anakin could become. What happened next was something both would carry forever. Anakin activated his lightsaber, the bright blue blade igniting with a sinister hum in the silent chamber. Ahsoka had only a second to process what was happening before he lunged at her. Her instincts took over, and she activated her own sabers in response, the blades meeting the blue one in an explosion of energy. "Master, stop!" she screamed, defending herself from his attacks, but refusing to counterattack. "This isn't you. Fight against it." But Anakin was lost in the moment, consumed by his fear, his anger, and his despair. He fought with a ferocity that Ahsoka had never seen from him, each strike intended to incapacitate her quickly. She defended herself as best she could, but it was useless. Anakin was stronger, more experienced, and in that moment was touching the dark side in a way that multiplied his power. With a brutal movement, he destroyed one of her sabers and then the other, leaving her disarmed and vulnerable before him. Anakin stood over Ahsoka, his saber still active, his breathing heavy. For a terrible moment, Ahsoka thought he was really going to finish her off. But then she saw something change in his eyes, a flash of horror and self-awareness penetrating through the darkness. The lightsaber deactivated, and Anakin backed away, looking at his own hands as if he didn't recognize them. "Snips, he began, his voice breaking. "I didn't want to," but he didn't finish the sentence, turning and running out of the council chamber. Ahsoka got up painfully, her destroyed sabers around her, and followed him as fast as she could. She knew exactly where he was going, to Palpatine's office, where the fate of the entire galaxy would be decided. Her legs burned as she ran through the temple corridors and then through the streets of Coruscant, the Force propelling her forward. When Anakin arrived at the Chancellor's office, the scene that greeted him was nothing he expected. Palpatine's body was lying on the floor, clearly dead, his face twisted in a final expression of surprise and rage. Master Windu stood over him, his lightsaber still active, while the other masters were scattered around the room, some wounded but alive. "No," Anakin whispered, falling to his knees. "No, no, no." All his hope, all the possibility of saving Padme that he had convinced himself existed, died in that moment with the Sith Lord. "Skywalker," Windu said severely, deactivating his saber. "It's done. The Sith threat has been eliminated." But Anakin wasn't listening. He was lost in his despair, sobbing as the reality of what he had done, of what he had almost become, hit him with full force. Ahsoka arrived moments later, entering the room and immediately assessing the situation. She saw Anakin on the floor, Palpatine dead, and Master Windu observing everything with an inscrutable expression. She ran to Anakin and knelt beside him, placing her arms around him. "It's all right," she murmured, holding him while he trembled. "It's over. He's gone. You didn't follow him into darkness." Anakin clung to her like a drowning man clutches a plank, his tears wetting her shoulder. "But Padme," he whispered, "how will I save her now?" Ahsoka held him tighter. "We'll find a way. Together. Doctors, healing masters, all the technology of the Republic. We won't let her die." Master Windu watched the scene with a mixture of confusion and growing concern. "Skywalker, what do you mean by saving someone? What are you talking about?" The truth came out inevitably. Before the assembled council, Anakin confessed everything. His secret marriage to Padme, the pregnancy, his nightmares, everything he had hidden for so long. Violated the code. You have, Yoda said gravely, his voice laden with sadness. Attached you became, and almost to the dark side you fell. The council deliberated for hours, debating what to do with Anakin. He had brought balance to the Force by identifying and exposing the Sith Lord, but he had also violated their most sacred rules and almost given in to darkness. In the end, the decision was clear but painful. Expelled from the Jedi Order you are, Yoda declared. But gratitude for the defeat of the Sith we have. Go in peace, you may. Anakin accepted the judgment without protest, feeling empty inside. Ahsoka, however, didn't hesitate. If Anakin is being expelled, then I'm leaving too, she said firmly, removing her Jedi robes and placing them before the council. Padme was waiting when Anakin and Ahsoka left the Jedi Temple for the last time. She had heard everything, and her heart ached for the pain she saw in Anakin's eyes. Let's go to Naboo, she suggested gently, holding his hand. We can start over there, away from all this. Raise our child in peace. Anakin looked at her, then at Ahsoka, and for the first time in months, felt something that wasn't despair or fear. It was hope. Yes, he agreed. Let's go home. The three traveled to Naboo, the green and peaceful planet that had witnessed Anakin and Padme's secret wedding. They settled in a village near the lake, away from curious eyes and the political intrigues of Coruscant. There, surrounded by Padme's love and Ahsoka's unwavering support, Anakin began to heal from the wounds that the war and the dark side had left on his soul. When the time came, Padme gave birth not to one, but two babies. Luke and Leia Skywalker were born on a beautiful spring morning, their cries filling the house with a joy that seemed impossible just months before. Anakin held his children for the first time with tears streaming down his face, not from sadness, but from pure joy and relief. Padme was alive, healthy and radiant, his terrible nightmares proven false. Ahsoka watched the family with a warm smile, sensing through the Force how the darkness that once threatened to consume Anakin was being replaced by light and love. In the following years, life on Naboo became a peaceful and happy routine. Anakin transformed completely, discovering that the best thing that had ever happened to him was being able to be with Padme and the children in peace, in the place where he got married. Ahsoka remained with them, becoming part of the family in every way that mattered. She continued her Jedi training independently of the Order, meditating in Naboo's peaceful mornings and practicing her saber forms. When Luke began to show sensitivity to the Force, Anakin naturally began to teach him, guiding his son through the ways of the Force the way Obi-Wan had once guided him. Leia watched her brother's training with growing interest, her own powers beginning to awaken. One day, she approached Ahsoka with determination in her young eyes. I want to learn too, she said simply. Ahsoka looked at Anakin, who smiled and said, a master can only have one Padawan. Looking significantly at Ahsoka, she understood immediately, her heart filling with pride and joy. It would be an honor to be your master, young Leia, Ahsoka said formally, bowing to the girl. Years passed in relative peace, but the rest of the galaxy wasn't so quiet. The Republic entered a deep crisis after Palpatine's death and the end of the Clone War. Systems began to separate, old tensions resurfaced, and the political structure that had held the galaxy together for 1,000 years began to crumble. At the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, tragedy struck when both Yoda and Mace Windu died, leaving the Order without clear leadership at its most critical moment. The remaining Jedi struggled to find direction, debating who could possibly lead the Order through the turbulent times that approached. It was then that Obi-Wan Kenobi, now a respected council member, made a suggestion that surprised everyone. I know someone, he said calmly, someone who was prophesied to bring balance to the Force, and who in fact exposed and defeated the Sith Lord. Someone who has matured through trials that would test any Jedi. Obi-Wan traveled to Naboo personally, his ship landing near the lakeside house where Anakin and his family lived. Anakin saw him arriving and came out to receive him, the two men embracing like the brothers they had always been. I missed you, my old Padawan, Obi-Wan said with a smile. You look well. More at peace than I've ever seen you. Anakin smiled back. I found my balance, Master. Here with my family. Obi-Wan nodded understandingly, then became serious. Anakin, I need to speak with you about something important. The Jedi Order needs a new Grandmaster, and the Council voted. They want you to return. Anakin started to shake his head, but Obi-Wan continued. Before you refuse, think about this. You've reached your full potential, found the maturity you've always sought. You could lead the Order in a new way, more balanced. And Luke could train properly as your Padawan. Anakin looked back to where Padme stood on the porch with Luke, now 6 years old, playing around her. Ahsoka was practicing saber forms with Leia in the garden, their laughter carried by the wind. This was the life he had always dreamed of, simple, peaceful, full of love. But he also felt the truth in Obi-Wan's words. The Force was calling him back to a greater purpose. He talked at length with Padme that night, and she, wise as always, touched his face gently. You were always destined for great things, Anakin. Go, make a difference. We'll be fine and you can visit whenever you want. With her blessing, Anakin accepted the call. He returned to Coruscant as Grand Master of the Jedi Order, with Luke as his official Padawan. Ahsoka also returned, bringing Leia as her Padawan, proud to train her master's daughter. The Jedi Temple gained new life under Anakin's leadership. He implemented changes that would have been unthinkable in the old days, recognizing that absolute detachment could be as dangerous as obsessive attachment. He taught his Jedi to find balance between detachment and compassion, between duty and love. Luke grew under his guidance, becoming a wise and powerful Jedi, while Leia flourished under Ahsoka's teaching, combining her sensitivity to the Force with a sharp mind for politics that she inherited from her mother. Anakin had finally found his place in the universe, not as the chosen one everyone expected, but as something better. A man who had faced the darkness, resisted it, and emerged stronger from the other side. A master, a father, a husband, and a leader who understood that true strength didn't come from absolute power, but from balance, love, and the courage to choose the light even when darkness offered easier solutions. This was the story of how Ahsoka Tano saved Anakin Skywalker from himself, and in doing so, saved the entire galaxy.